music.
He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat
Minute! Attention, citizens of Fair Gotham. Welcome once again to Bat Minute and Robin, the show that needs billions in order to finish the season. So head to our Patreon. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And here, shocked at how the prices of internets and microphones have just shot straight up during this whole pandemic. Jesus Christ. Billions we need.
Billions.
Oh, it was me, Niall McGowan.
Yes, and we are joined by a returning guest here on this exciting, should we call it an all-star week?
Yeah, I guess it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's an all-star week. We are joined once again by the one, the only, the Danny DeVito Prom Girl. It's Allison Closs.
Hey, howdy, hey, y'all. Allison here.
Hey, I feel awful that there's no Danny in this for you, but we've got Arnold, you know, he's kind of connected.
Oh, yeah. When I was on the talk, they gave me they gave me a bunch of cardboard cutouts of Danny DeVito, but one of them was Danny in Twins, and it has the attached Arnold, so 5 Dannys and an Arnold.
Oh, hell yes.
Oh, that's a film right there. That's something you need to make.
What more do you need in life in general?
Absolutely.
You know?
That's actually a good a question though for you in general, Allison, because I know you're like of a different generation than the old men that me and John are. To the younger people, like who is Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because to us, he was like the biggest star in the world when we were growing up.
Yeah.
What is his impact? Has he impacted the younger generation at all, or are you just like, oh yeah, that guy?
Well, as the local Gen Z, I can say that Arnold, he's kind of like a meme in the same way that Danny DeVito is. You ask somebody my age, and they've probably seen 1 or 2 movies with him in it, but they know him as, oh yeah, he's that guy. He's the Terminator. He's this and that, you know? It's kind of like the same sort of knowledge without knowledge that people have of like old presidents.
Okay.
Like we know John Quincy Adams was definitely a president, but if you ask me what he did, I don't know. Now, I'm a film major, so I know Arnold better than most Gen Zs, but like most Gen Zs are just like, yeah, we know he's that big guy with the deep voice and he's really famous and he's definitely a meme.
Oh, that's so fascinating to me. Yeah, because to us, he was the biggest actor in the world. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, whether you think he can act or not.
It's one of those things, like, if Arnold Schwarzenegger brought out a film, any film, it was like, yeah, you have to see that, because Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it. Like, it was guaranteed. It was never guaranteed to be good, but it was like, oh, we have to watch it, though. Like, it's there.
It's probably not good, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, man.
Although Twins is a classic. Come on.
And I think with like fan culture getting as big as it is these days, really, nerds have so much power these days. The millennials and Gen Xers, you know, who grew up with Arnold, they make their love very known. So even if you didn't grow up with Arnold, it's impossible not to know him.
Hell yeah. See, that's the difference. When I was a kid and that, like, you were expected to grow out of these things. But I think we're the first sort of generation and then moving on to kind of go, why would we grow out of all this? It's cool.
Really, I'd argue that the baby boomers started it. You know, they're still obsessed with like Elvis and the Beatles.
That's true. Yeah, the Beach Boys. And of course, we live in Liverpool, so we know all about the Beatles obsession.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. That's freaking dripping from every rooftop. This is Beatles everywhere.
Well, on my walk back from work every day, I walk past the Beatles Hotel. Oh. There's statues of the goddamn Beatles on the top of the hotel. It's like, Jesus Christ. Liverpool's cooler than that. But
so much more than just the Beatles.
It's true. It's very true. Screw the Beatles. I'm allowed to say that because I'm not from it.
Batman, its firm anti-Beatles stance now has been established.
I've got 2 Beatles records in this house. It's fine. I'm allowed to say screw the Beatles. But we are here to talk about minute 29 of Batman and Robin. The minute starts with a rock, and it ends with his rock.
See what you did there.
Yeah, I thought I was being obscure. I thought I'd get no reaction, so that's good. And we are back with Freeze gazing longingly at his other love in life, that damn diamond.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Frosty. I was like, I didn't get that vibe between those 2 guys, but yeah, you never know.
He's got an interesting relationship with Frosty.
It's Snow Miser.
Oh, Jesus. Did you know that song?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I think it's like the Rankin and Bass stuff is like that's like standard childhood text in America, but over here we're like, what's this? Like,
Yeah.
Well, like growing up, I always knew it from ABC Family, now known as Freeform these days. During Christmas, they would always play those movies all the time. So you couldn't turn on like whenever it was like Christmas time, they would have like the 25 Days of Christmas where they were playing nothing but Christmas movies and Christmas specials.
Oh, that's Niall's heaven.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So like every December, 25 days straight of nothing but that. So as a kid growing up, you know, me, all the other kids, we would always watch that all the time. So.
I'm assuming Jingle All the Way was in there.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Everyone should be watching that. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I actually have to ask you, Allison, like, what angle you coming at Batman and Robin from? Because of course this is like, you know, revered.
Oh, yeah.
Reviled as one of the worst films ever made, but like, you know, that was from a lot of people who were like, you know, grown up watching the Batman films progress into this.
Yeah.
But you coming now from like, you know, sort of a slightly outsider perspective, like, do you think it's as terrible as everyone makes it out to be?
I have a complicated relationship with this movie. So I was first introduced to it through when I was in middle school, I used to be obsessed with the Nostalgia Critic.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
I get that.
I know that's a bit of a cringy take these days for a lot of people, but like when I was a kid, that was like my introduction to film criticism, you know, and film analysis and geek culture. But one of his most famous videos, I think I rewatched it last night after watching the movie. Well, it was his 13th video he ever made. It was on Batman and Robin. So, and if anybody's seen Nostalgia Critic, he basically summarizes the entire movie when he does it. So, so I knew it through that, and I knew it through, you know, popular fan culture that absolutely despises it. I knew about the Bat credit card. But I never actually watched the movie because, you know, I'm a pretty ADHD person. So if I'm going to watch a movie, I'm going to watch a movie if I know that I'm going to like it. I don't take many risks. Yeah. Every now and then I will, if like a friend is very insistent or if my professor makes me. Or if I'm just feeling, you know, adventurous. But if everybody's telling me this movie sucks, I'm probably not going to watch it, you know?
Yeah.
That's fair. We take the opposite approach, and that's probably not a good idea.
Well, sometimes I do take that approach where everyone says it's so bad it's good. And Batman and Robin's definitely one of those movies. But anyways, so I never actually got around to watching it until last night. And the thing is, like, it definitely gave me a lot of vibes of, like, Adam West Batman. And see, the first half of the movie, I was like, this is so silly and ridiculous. I can't be mad at it. It's like
it's fun.
It's like yelling at a child. And it's clear that there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, love for the source material put into it. It's clearly just a commercial for toys. And so I'm like, it's hard to be mad at it. And it's at least it's fast-paced and colorful and fun, you know? It's not a good movie, but like, I was hard to be mad at it, but it wasn't until about halfway through, because this is a 2-hour movie. Like, this is too bad to be 2 hours.
It doesn't feel like 2 hours, though, to me. Does it to you?
Well, the thing is about, like, fast-paced movies, I'm a real appreciator for well-paced movies. And so when a movie is too fast-paced, then I feel like, you know, you hit the 1 hour mark and you feel like so much has happened and you've been so overloaded that you're like, I feel like the movie should be done by now.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
So when you watch a really slow movie, you get kind of a similar feeling. A really slow movie, you're like, it's 1 hour in and nothing's happened, I'm bored. And then you turn it off 1 hour in. But a really too fast-paced movie has kind of a similar effect where you're like, so much has happened. I feel like the movie should be over by now. Oh, I still have another half left. Yeah, and
that makes sense to me.
This could be like effective if it's like a good movie and you're like, wow, so much great stuff has happened and we're only an hour in. This is great. But if it's a bad movie and you're like already tired of it.
Yeah, I feel very much the same way. It's just like it is midway through, you do get fatigued. Where it's just like, it's too much silly. And I was like, oh my God.
I'm on board for the whole ride.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's bad, but I love it. If that makes I have fun.
Yeah, I think that's why going through it minute by minute will help, because it is like, well, you're only watching a minute at a time, so that makes it. You're only watching like what, 3 minutes a week? Fine, yeah, I can do that. But like the 2 hour sit is like, ooh. Yeesh.
I think it flies by. I think it feels like an hour and 20 minutes.
No, fair enough. Yeah. I think that's what I actually rewatched Twins. Just like this week, it's like, I'm going through the Arnie movies again. And it's like, oh no, Allison's coming on. It's the big Arnie and DeVito movie.
Yeah.
And so then looking into afterwards, and well, the things I took away from it is, one, I forgot at the beginning. They do a flashback to them being born, and Heather Graham is their mum, which was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
It was a completely like silent part. It's just like, here's the flashback, and here's their mother, and it's Heather Graham. Like, is she gonna say anything? It's like, no, that's her only scene. You're like,
and that'll be pre Twin Peaks. Right?
Oh yeah. This will be just she's just getting her start in the world. And then, but I was watching afterwards, like not behind the scenes things, like retrospectives, and there was one of Arnie talking, because him and Danny DeVito are like genuinely great friends.
Yeah.
And it's quite slightly odd because, like, you know, Arnold's hardcore Republican and DeVito is very, very left wing.
Well, you say that, but Arnold's like a weird Republican, isn't he? Like, he goes against the party all the time. He's become really green lately.
Yeah, but he was saying, like, on set that it was forbidden to talk to him about politics because everyone was having such a good time. They didn't want that to bog things down and stuff. But
well, have you read his autobiography yet?
I'm making my way through the audio book of his autobiography, actually.
Well, there's a bit, you might have hit it, I don't know. There's a bit where he basically describes how he became a Republican, and it's basically, he moved to America, and he saw Ronald Reagan on the TV and was like, he seems like a cool guy. Yeah, that's it. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, he seems like a strong leader. I'm his party now. That's it. There's no other connection.
I think Arnold and Danny have like the same energy, but on the opposite spectrum. Like they both have like, it's exactly what you said. You can't take your eyes off of them once they're on screen.
Yeah, same thing with Danny. Exactly. Yeah. That's why when he comes into It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Like, even though he might not be the best character, as soon as he turns up, the show's better.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He's doing some animated show now with Aubrey Plaza about like the devil's baby or something. It's like, what? Signed on, whatever it is. Don't tell me about it if you haven't already made it and it's not about to air, because now I'm just going to be sitting around waiting for this thing for the next damn year. But one of the other things, though, like Arnie is talking about, like the making of Twins, and he's saying like, oh, we had such a great time making the movie, because apparently like 2 or 3 times a week, Danny DeVito would make lunch for everyone, and he was just like, obviously an Italian chef at heart, and Arnie's just like, oh yes, the red wine would start flowing, and everyone would sit around for 2 or 3 hour lunches, just constantly drinking red wine and the limoncello and stuff, and then we go back and we couldn't remember our lines, and we'd be sitting there trying to remember everything, and the director would come over and he's like, you guys are losing me money.
That's a good Arnold impression.
Oh, thank you.
I'm impressed.
But he's and then even from that too, like Danny DeVito will be like on the other side going like, oh yeah, but I was trying to keep my weight down in those years, and me and Arnie would go and work out together, and then I'd go on the days I wasn't cooking, we'd have like a very sensible salad lunch, and then Arnie would order like a massive gooey dessert and just land it in front of me, and he knew it would tempt me, and it did every time.
Plus, Arnold is the kind of person, he's working out so much, he can have the dessert.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
His workout. Although I once looked at his recommended workout, and it wasn't like a long time. It's a bit like wrestlers. They always they don't work out for a long time. It's just crazy intense. It's like a lot in one block, like bam.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, those two guys are just, really, really good friends. Just like, I think Danny DeVito said the first time he met Arnold was like he was sitting in his car trying to get his, like, his luggage out and, like, kind of fumbling with things. So he had his kids there and they're like babies at the time. And then suddenly he was just lifted up by someone, like clean into the air. And then he just heard like, come on, Danny, let's go. And it would turn around. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger properly holding him up by his, the back of his shirt and stuff.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. But in this minute, Arnold, Freeze, he needs one more of these diamonds.
One more giant diamond of this size.
Of this size. To complete his freezing engine.
As he phrases it very specifically, my freezing engine.
Oh, yeah, you've got to emphasize the freeze part. Yeah, people might not know that that's your gimmick otherwise.
Yeah, my name is Freeze. I've changed the spelling so it's even more emphatically Mr. Freeze. That people might not notice by my like Arctic hideout. This is my thing. I've got a bit.
Oh yeah, he's leaning into it, and I appreciate that. Yeah. But he needs one more because his plan is to use this device he's creating to freeze the city and then ransom it back, demanding the money that he needs to complete his research. And I thought, like on the surface, that doesn't seem like that evil a plan. Like he's trying to help people, but I would also argue, that it's obviously not going to work. If he needs billions to complete the research, then clearly it's nowhere near done. And likely never will be. It's false hope, Freeze.
That's weird too as well. Like, how has he projected his costs enough to know, like, well, this is like, I have to pay for so many research partners and so many volunteers, but the volunteers should be free, but I have to pay for all the lunches. And it's like, where's he getting
billions from? He needs a GoFundMe, and like list out where all the money is going to.
Get it on Kickstarter and,
Save my wife, please.
Oh my God, that would be the best thing ever.
Oh man.
They'd probably give him the money. I mean, look at him. He's a blue man. I feel bad for him.
Yeah. Like he's a sympathetic character in some ways.
Has anyone ever done so I don't know if you, again, Allison, you might be too young to know about the cultural phenomenon that was Eiffel 65's I'm Blue Dabba-Dee. But it really feels like someone should make a YouTube video about Mr. Freeze to that song. Because he is literally, in many ways, both physically and emotionally blue.
Blue. We should make it.
In high school, I used to make those tribute videos, those AMVs, where you take like the clips and you put a song. And also, I'm just imagining like a cutesy edit of Mr. Freeze and Batman and Robin with that, like cutesy editing and like.
Oh yes, hell yeah! This needs to happen, people.
But we'll say about this whole scheme here, though. I think it's a bit weird that like he's already planning to build this giant thing to freeze the city, and then it feels like later on when Poison Ivy convinces him that Nora's dead, that feels in that scene like it escalates into him saying, "I'm going to freeze the city, like I'm taking my revenge on everyone." I don't know, maybe because then his motives there are revenge rather than funding. But it just seems like, well, he's already planned to do it. Like, you don't even really need to. I suppose Ivy kills her for the purposes of like she's jealous and doesn't want another woman in the picture. But I don't know, it just feels like at this point he should be like, I'm going to freeze like Wayne Tower or something small, or smaller. Like, and then eventually the threat escalates to the entire city and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Freeze, like even in comics, like in most iterations of him, he just symbolizes a certain way of dealing with grief by freezing up. Like you keep all that remains of that person and you try to freeze everything. You don't move on. You just keep that person in your mind frozen. You keep all their things, all that sort of stuff. You linger on the past. You stay frozen.
Yeah.
And so that lashing out also is kind of like, freezing everything. You're frozen and you want everyone else to be frozen too, because that's how it feels when you're in grief.
And again, that's like the Mr. Freeze, like many Batman villains, is a dark mirror of Batman.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Like Batman also. Although weirdly enough, in this movie, he has. Like, it seems like Batman's whole thing is like, he emotionally cannot move on from the death of his parents. He is frozen in that state. Whereas, weirdly enough, the movie that they bring in, Mr. Freeze, they're like, no, he seems like he's over that. It's all about Alfred
he doesn't
now.
care anymore.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's the past. Quit living in the past, Bruce.
Well, like, I think they're like mixing up the themes of the movie in a weird way. Like, if they would have just like focused on like that connection between him and Freeze, whereas like Batman is struggling with the grief, but then he overcomes it and he moves on, whereas Freeze doesn't, and he lets it consume him. That would have been neat. But they also tie that grief that Batman's feeling. They also tie it in with the family theme. Dude, when Batgirl was like trying to guess the password, I was like, family. I was like, it's gotta be family. It's gotta be family. I was so ready for that because they've said it a million times. Like, they make it very obvious what the theme is.
I think the only other movie to say family more is the Fast and Furious franchise.
Very true.
It's like Dom Toretto's password is like, the same password as Batman. That's why I chose it. We know why you chose it, Dom. You can't stop freaking talking about your family every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
My password is family.
Yeah. So, like, since they also tie those flashbacks in with the theme of family, it makes it kind of confusing for the audience what it's supposed to mean, you know?
One thing that confused me in it, too, and like I was still so disappointed to learn, guy playing Frosty, in close-up, I was certain it was Tom Arnold. Like,
I can see that, yeah.
He totally looks like Tom Arnold. Like, I thought this was like the True Lies reunion that everyone had been waiting 3 odd years to see.
Nope.
It's like, no, it's a completely different guy. It's just like, how disappointing is that? And I'm also a bit like, on his hat, he has this 0. And I'm not too sure what the purpose. Is it a 0?
Well, it's because 0 is freezing in Celsius.
I guess... Is that it though? Is that his symbol? It's like Mr. Freeze's symbol is like, or has he numbered his henchmen? But then his number 1 guy would actually be 0 because that's.
If you look closely, right above the 0 is another smaller 0. I think is the degree symbol.
There you go. That might be it then. Yeah.
And there is a group in All Elite Wrestling called the Dark Order. And they started off, they were a bit like Scientologists was their gimmick. And they recruit people and they give them a number. So, you know, they all have a number. There's like number 10 because he's the 10th one to join the group and things like this. And their leader was, you know, he was the exalted one, Brody Lee. He was number 1. But in real life, he died. And so his son has now joined the group. His son's like 10.
Oh.
Yeah. And he comes out. So, but they're like, well, what can we call him? They're like, -1. So he's -1 in the group. It's like, it's genius. So maybe it's clearly 0 degrees, but you could also say if they're numbering them, it's a bit like the Dark Order.
Go in. Like, so is everyone like if you are like. I'm assuming it'll be all minus numbers then. There's Mr. Freeze, unless he's like, the worse the henchman gets, the hotter he gets. So it's like, you're number 15. Oh, geez, get that guy the hell away from me. I never want to send him out in any jobs.
I think it's 0 degrees thing, since there's the little degree symbol above.
Yeah, I'm with that.
The thing is, now you really, I don't know if you've seen Batman 89, Allison, but like the very famous recurring bit in it where they keep saying, a boss will say to his henchmen, "You are my number 1 guy." And now it feels like they missed the opportunity to be, "You are my number 0 guy." Like, it's right there, dude. Just do it.
My 0 degrees. Although, speaking of goons, we've got Frosty here, the shivering goon, as I like to call him. In the draft, the fact that he seems even colder and wetter than everybody else makes sense. Because Freeze is annoyed, you know, with everything happening. So he freezes him. And then he thaws him out.
Yeah.
Because he needs him. And, you know, ta-da, here we are. So that's why he's wet.
Yeah, that was like a weird callback to an element from like Mr. Freeze's original. There's a couple of elements actually calling back to Mr. Freeze's, or Mr. Zero, as he was called back in like this first appearance in the comics. Because they always emphasize he has like a heat ray inside the freeze gun, so that's how he'd like break into vaults and stuff. It's like, you know, you'd superheat it first and then blast
presumably
it with...
the freeze ray can be reversed.
Yeah, I think it was actually a separate ray underneath. It was just like so you blast it with one, and then the other barrel was like the heat ray. So, you know, if you're super freezing a metal and then you instantly heated it up again, it would shatter. Basically, I think was the idea. But another thing is, so yeah, actually him having, you know, that feature is like, yeah, it's called. Like, it would serve no other purpose in this movie though. So I understand why they cut it. But like, another thing too is like this whole ensemble Mr. Freeze is wearing, the old the dressing gown and the cravat with the little diamond and stuff. That's comics accurate too. That was like his first appearance. The front cover of Mr. Zero's first appearance is him standing in a pink dressing gown with the same kind of cravat and the bald head and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I guess Mr. Freeze is a guy just like lounging around. He is a lounging. He is a friggin' Hugh Hefner-esque like man about the house.
He is Snoke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would say that was like notably as well, like when they brought him into the Batman 60 show, his first appearance, he's also wearing that pink dressing gown, as if this was the iconic look of Mr. Freeze, was this dude like always like in his loungewear and stuff. But he was played in this, weirdly enough, in his first appearance by George Sanders, who most people would know is the guy who did the voice of Shere Khan in The Jungle Book. And he was like full head of hair. Like, you know, he's like, I'm not shaving my head for this. And then next time we saw Mr. Freeze, he was played by Otto Preminger, who was just bald anyway. And then the next time it was Eli Wallach, head full of hair, just sprouted back out again. And it's weird because Mr. Freeze, I think everyone, you would assume from the story in this film and, you know, the idea of like, oh, guy gets, you know, this freezing solution put on him, that his hair falls off. But actually in the original comics, he was just bald anyway. He was just like a cue ball guy. And I can use that term as a cue ball guy myself.
Yes, also, yes.
Yeah. But he was just like, yeah, he was just bald to begin with, and then just sort of stuck with the character after that. It's like, I guess he has to be bald, right? Like, no, you can have hair if you want him to. Like, no, Mr. Freeze is. And this became an issue of contention behind the scenes. Because Arnie here is wearing a bald cap of sorts, a very complicated one that they spent a long time perfecting. And I'd say to good benefit, because it actually does look pretty well. But apparently behind the scenes there were negotiations with him where they were like, Arnie was getting paid $25 million to make this, and essentially he was getting paid $1 million a day because he was only there for 25 days. 12-hour shooting days, and 4 hours of that was dedicated to the makeup.
Oof.
And so they said to him, like, if you just shaved your head, it would take an hour off. Like, we wouldn't have to, worry about it. And in the behind-the-scenes book here, it says, a good-natured war was waged between Jeff Dawn, the makeup artist, and Schwarzenegger over the actor's hair. So had Arnold shaved his head, it would have taken an hour off the makeup process in the morning and another 20 minutes at night. I talked to him about it several times about the matter during the months leading up to the startup date, and he said, like, yeah, it sounds good, sounds practical. But every time we set a date for his head shaving, Arnold would find some reason to put it off. So we used the bald cap on the final Mr. Freeze makeup test, and then on the first day of shooting, and at the end of that day, Arnold finally said, putting this cap on is really a pain. Let's save time. Bring in the behind-the-scenes video crew tomorrow, and we can tape them shaving my head. So the morning came by. The video crew was standing there, and I'd never seen Arnold like this. He was really uncomfortable. His hairstylist was standing by, razor in hand, and then Arnold said cheerfully, "Okay, Jeff, let's put the ball cap on." And then Jeff said, "I thought we were going to shave your head today." And he replied, "Oh, no, you're not. You touch that razor to my head, and I'll make your life miserable."
I don't blame him.
Yeah, then Jeff Dawn concludes by saying, like, the truth is, I'm glad we didn't, because it looks so good with the bald cap. It was a challenge to make it work out well, but that's all the more rewarding in the end. And I kind of get a vibe, because this is the making of book, that's him through gritted teeth going like, I'm happy we did it this way instead, because it was, it was a challenge, but we managed to overcome. Where he's like, goddamn friggin' Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm with Arnold. I miss having hair. I wish I had hair, so don't shave it for anyone.
Yeah. And again, too, it does look well, that bald cap. So it was a whole big production to, like, it wasn't just any old bald cap. It was like a thing where they give you all the details, like a foam latex cap, custom made to fit his hairline. There had to be all different appliances, put on, and it took them weeks and weeks to get it right and stuff.
The makeup looks really good. I particularly like the texture on it, how like it's sparkly but also looks like rough. If you were to touch it, it looks like it would be rough. It's like he has tiny diamonds all over him. It's super cool. And I also like weird detail. I like his nail polish.
How have I not noticed that? I'm a nail polish enthusiast.
It's got this like sparkly blue nail polish, and I'm like, dude, where do I get some of that? That looks nice.
They call up Arnie. Actually, Twitter him. See, you never know. But I keep a spare supply in my case for emergencies.
I've got my own personal brand.
I will say that the thing with the makeup, weird you saying it looks like diamonds, because it definitely does.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually saying to John just before we came on, like, it reminds me of in Arrested Development, when Tobias, like, coats himself in the diamond skin cream to use as a disguise. It's like, yeah, that's weirdly, like, maybe friggin' David Cross could do Mr. Freeze and just put that makeup back on.
Well, next time you have a party, Niall, I'm going to put diamond skin cream on myself, because I have famously turned up to one of Niall's parties and I completely blew myself like Tobias. And were you finding blue handprints in your house for like 2 weeks?
Oh, yeah. The next day in the shower, we're just like, what the hell is there, like, on the taps, on the walls? We'll say it was a themed party. It wasn't just John showing up blue for the sake of it.
David Cross is Mr. Freeze with the same mustache and like hair.
Yeah. Let's do it, people. Or me. You can hit me up, Warner Brothers. It's fine.
But we'll say, though, after all the the good work they've done here with the makeup, it looks great. Very, very shoddy work, though, when they're doing the redubbing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it goes... This is baffling that this made it in. And I can only assume it was deliberate to kind of lend it a campier tone. Because, it does this thing of like, once the city bows to my demands, it'll be with here forever, I got them. And he's kind of waving, his hand around and stuff. And you can just see, it's like his lips are not moving to that phrase.
Not at all.
At all. It's crazy, like how bad it is. And I think it is because it's a redubbed line from... obviously done very last minute in the novelization. I think even in the script. He's like, it'll be winter here forever in Goat Town.
Yeah.
Which is, if long-term Bat Minute listeners might recall, the meaning behind that is because Gotham is an old English phrase for like a home for goats. If we go all the way back to Bat Minute 89, Minute 3, the episode is... I was going to say that feels like years ago, but it literally was. Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, coming up 4 years ago now. But, Minute 3, A Homestead Where Goats Are Kept was the title of that episode, because that's what Gotham means. Uh-huh. And I guess maybe they thought, like, it'll be too confusing for people. But it is weird, because he does say, he says the word Gotham, and then in the next sentence, he then says, we'll be winter here forever in Gotham. And you can tell they're like, you have the choice between, you can say Goat Town, and people will be like, what? Or you just have to say Gotham twice. Whereas as a professional proofreader, I would be like, nope, you got to change that to something else, because otherwise your writing just seems very bland.
I get it. Yeah, I'm with you.
So I actually did find a whole article on the sound mixing in Batman and Robin. Like I looked up Batman and Robin ADR to see if like somebody has an explanation for why. Like, and it's not just in this scene. Like throughout the movie, there's a lot of bad ADR moments. And I've been skimming this, and it's interesting. It's apparently about 95% of the movie was looped. The dialogue.
That does not surprise me.
The set was so relaxed. They're like, we forgot to turn on the microphone half the time.
Yeah.
It was Joel Schumacher and come back,
it's fine.
A little bit of a problem here.
I'm going to have to give this a deeper read sometime, because like it is interesting to look like, how does a mistake like this happen? Because from what I'm seeing, apparently like the sound recorder, sound mixers, very experienced people, but for some reason, what went wrong here? But to be fair, if 95% of the dialogue was dubbed over, and you have a couple lines that look bad, I mean, that's that's not too bad. Maybe it's the makeup that like he couldn't like enunciate as well.
I don't know. Yeah, actually, Arnie did have some sort of apparatus in his mouth as well.
That's
to
right. Yeah.
keep his mouth blue and to have like the light at times. So it's like it could have been that, right? It's just like it was the Christopher Nolan Bane problem all over again. But instead of like, I was like, oh, we'll just do the one character and make it like you wouldn't tell that it was redubbed. This is just like, oh yeah, we didn't even really try. Like you could tell even in that scene, all you have to do was just keep the camera on Frosty for like 2 more seconds, and then you bypass that problem. But like, no, we need this glory shot of Arnie pontificating.
Oh, but you get some good stuff as well, because when he goes into the secret room through the freezer, his wife is there, preserved essentially in Bacta from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are you aware of the Batman animated series is Mr. Freeze, Allison? Is that something that you've come across? Or
I never watched the Batman animated series, but I am familiar with it. Like I know of it. I know that's really good, but I never actually watched it as a kid. Or an adult.
But still, it's really, really stands up. I would highly, highly recommend it. But yeah, this is the thing that gets directly taken from that cartoon. There's no iteration of Mr. Freeze beforehand where he has the dying wife. And this is the big reveal that Nora, who you presumed was dead. And actually in the first episode of Mr. Freeze, you presumed Nora died as well. And then in the second episode, Deep Freeze, that he appears in, they have this same kind of thing where it turns out, no, she's been preserved in this, giant fish tank thingamajig. And let me tell you, someone who's owned fish, that tank is going to be a pain in the ass to clean. Friggin' the algae, going to have to go in there like 2 or 3 times a week to get that glass that pristine. Oh my God. I'm just like, I would just, if it was me, I'd just let her die. The amount of effort you have to do to maintain that friggin' thing, she had her chance. Just let her go, Does slightly irk me, though, that she isn't really frozen, though.
Yeah, that's
she's
just
not at all.
me.
She's not even slightly frozen.
She's thawed out.
She's in water. And also, she's in water. She's not got, like, any oxygen mask on. She's not got like a catheter.
Well, we're assuming it's water. Maybe it's some kind of strange chemical he's created.
It could be. There's like a genuine, like the life-giving elixir.
But even then, it's weird.
Yeah, it's just like a liquid you can be submerged in for God knows how long. It's presumably been years that she's been in this thing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's been a couple of years.
Yeah. It's like, how often does he have to change the clothes? Does he have to wash her, or because she's in the thing?
Drain her out and then give her a sponge bath and put her back in.
Yeah, it's just like, because again, you would have to clean the tank. Like it's dirt will just naturally occur in
just
there.
Algae on the side.
Yeah, so it's like, what is the maintenance? And who has to deal with that? Is it him doing it, or is it Frosty? Like, what's happening there?
I assume he's got people doing it. Actually, no, I'm saying that, but I also assume that he doesn't let anyone see his wife.
Yeah. He did have that thing of like, we need time alone.
The button is hidden behind the sesame seed chicken.
It's like, no one ever looks behind the sesame seed chicken.
Like nobody suspects the Spanish Inquisition, Nobody looks behind the sesame seed chicken.
Like the door's hidden behind the non-alcoholic beer section. Like, well, if someone wants a non-alcoholic beer, well, it's never come up.
And they reuse some of these shots later in the movie. Also, when Poison Ivy finds her, like they reuse the same shot of the necklace and like the shots of her. It's weird. They do that a couple other times. Like there's another moment when they introduce Poison Ivy and Bane where they reuse the same shot of Bane flexing.
Why not? It's a good flex.
Yeah, that was because it's just like, so has he literally been standing there the whole time in that same spot, or has he moved around and it just happens to be standing in the same spot in that exact second?
He doesn't need to move.
Yeah.
But this whole scene, I actually genuinely find it moving.
Oh yeah,
like it's a wonderful shot, an emotional moment.
Music is good.
All he wants is to be with her. Like for a silly movie, it's actually quite a nice scene.
That's the end of that Mr. Freeze episode of the animated series, and like in the original run before they did like the new Batman Adventures, there was only 2 of them, and they're both excellent. But yeah, the final shot of that is Mr. Freeze like in an ice cave with just Nora in silhouette. Like her, you can see her, but he's in silhouette, just like on his knees in front of her with the head down and stuff. And it's every Mr. Freeze episode is always a bummer because that show is just like, it doesn't matter if they're kids. Friggin' make them sad. Who cares? And like, yeah, they really lean into the tragedy of it. Like I think that's why people liked it so much, because they're like, oh my God, this guy, this poor man and stuff.
Oh,
But
that sounds sad.
yeah, Batman and Robin though, they're just like, well, you know, he is kind of a dick though.
But you know, he's been driven into being a dick.
He can at least heat the pathways for his henchmen or something, you know? But yeah, that's all the notes I've got for minute 29. Has anyone got anything more specific to 29 they want to talk about? Or
Yeah, I have 2 other notes. First off, his bloodshot eyes, like Arnold, like every time we see him, like he has these very piercing blue contacts, but his eyes are always really bloodshot, and that just something about that just irked me.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, and the plastic diamond that just looks incredibly fake.
Well, you know, we mere mortals have not seen a real diamond of this size, so we don't know.
I'm assuming you mean to me though, because I know so little about diamonds. I was like, "Yep, looks great." that didn't faze me at all.
It just looks so plasticky.
It does. It really does.
I do also like to think too that like, because Arnie is a guy, you know, he works hard, he plays hard. So the bloodshot eyes, I imagine he knew that like, oh, every day I could just get to sit for 4 hours in the makeup chair. He's probably just been banging back, you know, scotches every night and smoking a cigar at the gentleman's club and stuff, and then just showing up
living
like,
the dream.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, okay, sleeping off while he's in the makeup chair, and I'm like, all right, I'm good to go.
That's me getting up for work every day. Like, oh, jeez.
Yeah. He knew that shaving his head and taking that precious hour of his time was gonna mess up his drinking schedule. So. He thinks that the bald cap was his snooze button. It's like, if I take away that, then I'd have to go to work earlier.
What a hero. But no, I'm noted out.
Yeah, but also because this Batman and Robin is revered or reviled as being one of the worst films ever made, we're asking the guests what they feel personally is the worst film they've ever seen. Like something that you were truly appalled that you had to sit through. Well,
it all depends on like what like objectively or subjectively. Objectively, I'd probably say I took this class on Arab film, and we saw this movie Stairway to Heaven that was just so incompetently made. It hurt me. Oh, where was it from? Oh, I need to find out now. No, I think it might have been called Door to Heaven. I don't know, something like that. Doorway in the Sky, something. It was so weird and so bad and just so incompetently made that it hurt to watch. But the movie that irks me the most, just personally, I gotta say, this is 2 movies, but I kind of lump them into one. It's the Percy Jackson movies. They hurt me on a deep level. Like those books. Was
it because you were like a Percy Jackson fan? Oh yeah,
I still am. I read everything that Rick Riordan puts out. Like those books were so fundamental to my childhood and making me into who I am today. And like honestly, I tell people, I'm like, hey, if you read those books, then you know me as a person. But yeah, those books were just so important to me and so special to me. And so when they were so disrespectfully made, like everything that those books stand for just like completely shot in the face. It's like to me it's worse than what Shyamalan did to The Last Airbender. It's just very, very disrespectful filmmaking. And and even just the fact that like Chris Columbus didn't even read the books, the cast didn't even read the books. Like
seriously?
Yeah, like I remember watching an interview with the cast, and they asked a question that you would have known if you would have read the books, but like the cast is like, what, huh, what? I'm like, I knew it. I knew you.
Come on, if you're cast in a movie of a book, go and read the goddamn book.
Especially if it's really, really short and at a middle grade reading level.
Yeah, it's not like reading War and Peace.
Yeah.
This is like friggin' the sets of Lord of the Rings. You'd see Ian McKellen walking around with the goddamn book in hand because he knew like, oh, I gotta look at this.
Dense text, really dense text. Like these books, like I'm like the least you could do. Like it'll take you like a day or two to read. Like
yeah.
At least you could
God damn it, that's lazy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I remember I took this class on acting while I was in college, and my professor, he was a very, very serious professional actor, and he talks about how, like, yeah, when you're a serious professional actor, you really study your role. You study that role, you study that person, you try to flesh out that person and try to make that character as, you know, good for the audience as possible. You read every single line and think about what is motivating every line. Every movement you make is calculated, you know, and you really put that research and effort into it. And when you're portraying a beloved character that like millions of kids, you know, like that's so important to millions of people, you'd think that you'd have the respect enough to like actually put in the effort to try to like make the fans happy, but to the complete disregard for that, you know? And even from the director himself too, just kind of bragging. He's like, yeah, I never even read the book. I don't even know what any of this is about. I'm like,
that's not
are you kidding me? Like, that's so disrespectful. And like casting aside all of the themes and all the characters and everything that makes it what it is. And just to make it into like a clear Harry Potter ripoff, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that like this is a series that like is so important to me, and people think that that's what it's like, and I'm like, that's not what the books are like at all. They are not a Harry Potter ripoff by any means. They're hurts me so much, those movies, and I can't I have so many thoughts about them, but I can't even watch like videos that are like critiquing them, because just looking at them just puts me in a bad mood.
I get that. I get it.
I can imagine this now. Coming soon, Allison Closs's Percy Jackson minute, where you're just talking about, I hate everything that's happening. Let me tell you why this is goddamn bullshit.
Why not? Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm glad that they're doing the Disney Plus remake now, and that the author and his wife are actually like showrunners on it and are in charge of it. So it's gonna be good.
But then, of course, though, to spin things into a more positive note, Allison, we're also asking about, because Batman and Robin is also beloved by many people, is there a movie that you have that you like staunchly defend that's genuinely regarded by the population as being quote unquote bad?
I really like The Last Jedi.
Yes, that is one of my favorite Star Wars movies.
Yeah, same. It's I think it's the most visually amazing, well made. I love Rian Johnson. Knives Out is great. He directed a couple episodes of Breaking Bad, and those are honestly my favorite episodes, because he's such a great visual director, and the way he when it comes to subverting expectations, everyone's just been using that phrase so much, throwing around all over the place. And I think people are just so overly critical of everything. I'm like, come on, just watch the movie. Just have a good time. Just enjoy it, you know?
Exactly.
They're like, this one part of the movie at the casino was boring. And I'm like, who cares? You know, like...
But yeah, like I'm ready to wrap this baby up if you guys are.
Alrighty.
Hell yeah. We will head off into the dark night once more. Allison, would you like to say where you can be found online or promote anything that you like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is The Book Lover, Book Lover. I do a lot of stuff about Percy Jackson and other books that I like, because honestly, what happened was, when I was 15 and in the height of my Percy Jackson phase, I made a lot of parodies of that stuff, and then I became known for that. And so to this day, honestly, I don't mind it. I still enjoy these books and like making funny videos, parodies and like hot takes and stuff like that. We all have, the way I see, when it comes to geek nerd culture, we all have our things,
Yeah.
I have a friend who is still in the Thomas the Tank Engine fandom, and he's in his 20s.
Hell yes. My favorite as a kid.
Yeah, and I'm like, honestly, I can respect that. The fact that you're still in that fandom and have zero shame about it. That's good for you, man. Yeah, you can also find me on Instagram at Allicloss, ALLICLOSS. Recently I've been doing some TikTok stuff. I don't really watch TikToks, but I do post short funny videos on there that I make. You can find me at Shrek and Donkey's Love Child, because that is how I identify in life. Recently, I put out 2 TikToks that I think are very funny about how to best spread your ashes in the Chuck E. Cheese ball pit.
Hell yes.
Yeah, because I was thinking about this. I'm like, okay, if I wanted my ashes spread in the Chuck E. Cheese ball pit, how should I go about this? How should I go about contacting people to make this happen? I put a lot of thought into that.
Oh, that's brilliant. I have a TikTok and I never go on it, but now I'm going on.
At Shrek and Donkey's Love Child, you can find out how to spread your ashes in the Chuck E. Cheese ball pit. And yeah, those are my socials.
Cool. Check that out, everybody, and come and check us out on all the usual, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that nonsense. We've promoted it on Monday. It's fine. And we'll be back on Friday with more Bat, Minute, and Robin, and a new guest in this All-Star Week. See you then.
Next time, rat-a-tat-tat, who's that? After a glacial graze at the femme fatale in the frigid, we shoot straight to a stately home of a millionaire heir. Downtown in the daytime sees our dynamic duo rest and take stock, but which destined dominoed their doll has designed to give their door a knock. We're all abuzz on Friday, loyal listeners. Same bat pod, different bat minute.
I heard most of that and it was gold. We'll be back.